I returned from a business trip and found my room completely empty. Even my wedding dress was gone. Hi everyone. Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. I never thought I'd be writing this. Even now, sitting here with my laptop open and my hands trembling over the keys, part of me still can't believe it happened. But it did. And I need to tell someone, anyone, because keeping this inside is eating me alive. My name is Elena, and for 12 years, I believed I had everything. A husband who loved me, a home we built together, memories stored in every corner of our apartment. I was the kind of woman who kept everything ticket stubs from our first movie together, pressed flowers from our honeymoon, his handwritten notes from the early days, and most importantly, I kept my wedding dress. That dress. God, that dress meant everything to me. I married David on a sunny Saturday in May, 12 years ago. I can still feel the weight of that gown on my shoulders, the way the satin pooled around my feet like liquid moonlight. It wasn't expensive. We didn't have much money back then, but it was perfect. My mother had helped me choose it, spending hours with me in bridal shops, watching me twirl in front of mirrors, until we found the one that made me cry happy tears. The dress was simple, ivory satin with delicate lace sleeves, a sweetheart neckline, and a train that whispered against the floor when I walked. When I put it on for the first time, I felt like I was stepping into my future. I saw my whole life ahead of me, children, anniversaries, growing old together. That dress wasn't just fabric and thread. It was hope. It was promise. It was the beginning of us. David cried when he saw me walk down the aisle, real tears streaming down his face, and he didn't bother to wipe them away. His hands shook when he slid the ring onto my finger, and when he kissed me, I tasted salt from his tears mixed with champagne from the toast we'd had before the ceremony started. Everyone said we were the perfect couple. Everyone said we'd last forever. I believed them. After the wedding, I carefully preserved the dress. I had it professionally cleaned and sealed in a special preservation box, the kind with acid-free tissue paper and a viewing window, so I could see the bodice without opening it. I stored it in the back of our bedroom closet, behind the winter coats and boxes of old photographs. Sometimes, on anniversaries, or when I was feeling nostalgic, I'd take it out and just look at it. I'd run my fingers over the lace, remembering how young we were, how full of dreams. David used to tease me about it. "You'll never fit into that thing again," he'd joke, poking my side playfully. And I'd laugh and swat him away, telling him it wasn't about fitting into it. It was about remembering, about keeping a piece of that perfect day alive. Our life together was good. Better than good, actually. We lived in a 3-bedroom apartment in the city, nothing fancy, but it was ours. David worked in finance, and I was a project manager for a tech company. We both did well, climbed the career ladder steadily, but we never let work consume us. We made time for each other. Sunday mornings were sacred. We'd sleep in late, then make breakfast together. David insisted on making pancakes, even though he always burned the first batch. We'd eat on the couch with our feet tangled together, watching whatever true crime documentary I was obsessed with that week. He'd complain about it, say he preferred action movies, but he always stayed and watched with me anyway. We traveled when we could. Nothing extravagant, mostly road trips to coastal towns or weekend getaways to the mountains. David loved photography, and he'd spend hours trying to capture the perfect sunset while I explored local shops, collecting postcards and magnets for our fridge. Our refrigerator was a collage of memories magnets from Portland, Austin, Savannah, dozens of small towns whose names I can't even remember now. Each one was a story, a moment frozen in time. Holidays were my favorite. I went all out for Christmas, decorating every inch of our apartment with lights and garland and ridiculous inflatable Santas. David would mock me for it, but I'd catch him smiling when he thought I wasn't looking. On Christmas morning, we'd open presents slowly, savoring each one, and then we'd cook an elaborate dinner together, just the two of us, because his family was overseas and mine lived too far away to visit regularly. I thought we were happy. I really did. But looking back now, I can see the cracks. They were small at first, hairline fractures I explained away, or simply didn't notice. It started maybe 2 years ago, though I can't pinpoint an exact moment. David became distant. Not in an obvious way. He still came home for dinner, still kissed me goodbye in the mornings, but there was a space between us that hadn't been there before. He stopped taking photos. That was the first real sign, though I didn't recognize it as one at the time. The camera that used to go everywhere with him started collecting dust on the shelf. When I asked about it, he shrugged and said he'd lost interest, that he was too busy with work. I accepted that explanation. I wanted to believe it. Then came the late nights at the office. One night a week became 2, then 3, then 4. He'd come home exhausted, barely able to keep his eyes open, and head straight to bed without even eating. I'd save him dinner, leave it in the fridge with a note, but more often than not, I'd find it untouched the next morning. Our Sunday mornings changed. He started going to the gym early, then meeting friends for brunch. I'd wake up alone, find a note on his pillow saying he'd be back later. The pancakes stopped. The documentaries stopped. The tangled feet on the couch became a memory. Sex became routine, then infrequent, then almost non-existent. When we did make love, it felt mechanical, like he was going through the motions. Afterward, he'd turn away from me, his back a wall I couldn't scale. I tried talking to him about it, but he'd brush it off, say he was stressed, that work was killing him, that he just needed time. I gave him time. I gave him so much time. I threw myself into my own work, telling myself that this was just a rough patch, that all marriages went through phases like this. I took on more projects, volunteered for assignments that required travel. Part of me wanted to prove I was still valuable, still interesting. Part of me just wanted to escape the suffocating silence that had settled over our home. The business trips became more frequent. I'd be gone for 3 days, sometimes a week. David never seemed to mind. In fact, he seemed relieved when I told him I had to travel. He'd help me pack, drive me to the airport, kiss me goodbye with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. During those trips, I'd text him throughout the day photos of the hotel, the conference center, the local restaurant where I'd eaten dinner. He'd respond, but his messages were brief. Nice. Cool. Have fun. I'd call him at night and we'd talk for maybe 10 minutes before he'd say he was tired and needed to sleep. I told myself everything was fine. I had to believe it was fine because the alternative was too terrifying to consider. The last trip was supposed to be routine. A 4-day conference in Boston, meetings with clients, the usual networking dinners and PowerPoint presentations. I'd been to this conference 3 times before. I could navigate it in my sleep. David drove me to the airport on Tuesday morning. It was raining, a cold October drizzle that made everything gray and miserable. We didn't talk much during the drive. The radio filled the silence, some pop song I didn't recognize. When we got to the terminal, he pulled up to the curb and put the car in park. "Have a good trip," he said, leaning over to kiss my cheek. His lips were cold. "I'll be back Friday evening," I told him, squeezing his hand. "We should do something this weekend. Maybe go to that new Italian place you mentioned?" "Yeah, sure. Sounds good." He was already looking past me, at the traffic building up behind us. I grabbed my suitcase from the trunk and waved as he drove away. His car disappeared into the rain, and I had this strange, sinking feeling in my chest that I couldn't explain. I stood there for a moment, getting soaked, before shaking it off and heading inside. The conference was fine. Boring, mostly. I sat through presentations on project management methodologies and team synergy optimization, took notes I'd never look at again, exchanged business cards with people whose names I'd forget by next week. In the evenings, I'd go back to my hotel room, order room service, and try to call David. He didn't answer most of the time. When he did, he was distracted, his voice distant. I could hear the TV in the background, some sports game or action movie. Our conversations lasted 5 minutes, maybe less. On Thursday night, I texted him, "I miss you, can't wait to be home tomorrow." He responded 2 hours later with a thumbs up emoji. Just that, nothing else. I should have known then. I should have felt it. Friday arrived and I was exhausted. All I wanted was to go home, take a long bath, and curl up with David on the couch. Maybe we'd order takeout. Maybe we'd finally have that conversation I'd been avoiding. The one about what was happening to us, why we felt like strangers living in the same apartment. My flight landed at 6:30 p.m. I texted David from baggage claim, telling him I'd catch an Uber home, that he didn't need to pick me up. He responded immediately this time. "Okay, see you soon." The Uber ride home felt longer than usual, even though traffic was light. I watched the city pass by through the window, the familiar streets and buildings that should have felt comforting, but instead made me anxious. That sinking feeling from Tuesday was back, heavier now, pressing against my ribs. I got home a little after 7:30. The apartment building looked the same as always, brick facade, ornate front door, the lobby with its outdated chandelier. I took the elevator to the 4th floor, my suitcase wheels squeaking against the hallway carpet. Our apartment was number 4C. I stood in front of the door for a moment, key in hand, trying to shake off the unease that clung to me like cobwebs. I was being ridiculous. Everything was fine. David was probably inside, waiting for me, maybe even making dinner as a surprise. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the comfortable silence of a quiet evening, but an oppressive, hollow silence that made my ears ring. The lights were off. The air smelled stale, like the windows hadn't been opened in days. "David?" I called out, flipping on the light switch. No answer. I left my suitcase by the door and walked through the apartment. The living room looked normal, couch, TV, coffee table, all exactly as I'd left them. The kitchen was clean, dishes drying in the rack. Everything seemed fine, but when I walked down the hallway toward our bedroom, my stomach dropped. The door was open, the light was on, and the room was empty. Not just empty stripped, bare. I stood in the doorway, unable to move, unable to process what I was seeing. The furniture was gone. The bed, the nightstands, the dresser, all of it, vanished. The walls were naked, the nails and hooks removed, leaving behind small holes and discolored rectangles where picture frames had hung. I walked into the room slowly, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood floor. The closet door was open. I looked inside and felt my heart stop. My clothes were gone. All of them. The hangers were empty, swaying slightly, as if someone had just rifled through them. My shoes, my jewelry box, my winter coats. Everything I owned had disappeared. And the wedding dress, the preservation box that had sat in the back corner of the closet for 12 years, was gone. I stood there, staring at the empty space, trying to make sense of it. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of mistake, some kind of horrible joke. Maybe we'd been robbed. Maybe someone had broken in and stolen everything. But why would a thief take my clothes? Why would they take my wedding dress? I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and called David. It rang once, twice, 3 times. He didn't answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. Panic rose in my throat, hot and suffocating. I ran to the guest room, also empty. The bathroom, my toiletries were gone. My towels, everything. The only things left in the entire apartment were David's belongings and the shared furniture in the living room. It was like I'd been erased. I called him again, and again, and again. Each time, voicemail. I texted him, "Where are you? Where are my things? What is happening?" The messages showed as delivered, but not read. I sat down on the living room floor, my back against the couch, and tried to breathe. My mind was racing, spiraling through possibilities, each one worse than the last. Had David had some kind of breakdown? Was he in trouble? Had something happened to him? Or had he done this intentionally? No. No, that was impossible. David wouldn't do this. He couldn't. We'd been married for 12 years. He loved me. He loved me, didn't he? I don't know how long I sat there, minutes or hours, staring at my phone, willing it to ring. When it finally did, I nearly dropped it. David? I answered immediately, my voice cracking. Elna. His voice was flat, emotionless. He didn't sound worried or surprised or confused. He sounded resigned. Where are you? Where are my things? I came home and everything's gone, David. Everything. And I don't understand what's happening. I needed to do this, he interrupted. His voice was quiet but firm. I couldn't keep living like this. Living like what? What are you talking about? Silence. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line, slow and steady, while I was practically hyperventilating. David, please, talk to me. Where are my things? Where's my wedding dress? I got rid of them. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? I got rid of your things, donated most of it, threw some stuff away. I needed to start fresh, and I couldn't do that with all your things there, reminding me of everything. My mind couldn't process what he was saying. Start fresh? David, what are you talking about? Where are you? Another pause. Then, I'm at Lindsay's. Lindsay. The name meant nothing to me for a moment, and then I remembered his coworker, the woman he'd mentioned a few times over the past year. She worked in his department, something in accounting. I'd never met her, never thought about her, never had any reason to. Why are you at Lindsay's? But even as I asked, I knew. Somewhere deep in my gut, I already knew. I've been seeing her, he said, and his voice was so calm, so matter-of-fact, like he was telling me about the weather. For about 1.5 years now. We're in love. I'm moving in with her. I needed space in the apartment for my things, so I cleared out your stuff. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning, the walls closing in on me. I know this is hard, he continued, and he had the audacity to sound sympathetic. But it's better this way, cleaner. We've been growing apart for a while now, and I think we both knew this was coming. I met someone who makes me happy, who understands me. I'm sorry it had to happen like this, but I'm not sorry it happened. You threw away my wedding dress. It was all I could say, the only coherent thought in the chaos of my mind. It was just taking up space. You were never going to wear it again. It was my wedding dress, David, from our wedding, from the day we promised to love each other forever. Yeah, well, he sighed like I was being difficult, like I was the problem here. Forever's a long time. People change. I changed. I need different things now. How long have you been planning this? My voice was surprisingly steady, even though I felt like I was shattering into 1,000,000 pieces. A few weeks. Lindsay and I decided it was time to stop hiding. Her lease was up at the end of the month anyway, so it made sense for me to move in with her. I figured while you were gone was the best time to clear everything out. Less dramatic that way. Less dramatic. He'd erased me from our home, thrown away 12 years of memories, destroyed the most precious keepsake of our marriage, and he thought this was less dramatic. I need to get my things back, I said. David, please. You can't just throw away my entire life. Most of it's already gone. Donation centers, trash, whatever. The wedding dress. He paused, and I heard a woman's voice in the background, muffled and indistinct. Lindsay wanted it, actually. She's about your size, and she thought she could have it altered for when we get married. The world stopped. You gave my wedding dress to your girlfriend. Fiancé, actually, I proposed last week. I ended the call. I couldn't listen anymore. I threw my phone across the room and watched it hit the wall, the screen cracking in a spiderweb pattern. Then I started screaming. I don't know how long I screamed. Long enough that my throat went raw, long enough that a neighbor knocked on the door asking if everything was okay. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I was drowning in rage and grief and betrayal so profound it felt like my chest was being crushed. My wedding dress, the symbol of our love, our promises, our beginning. He'd given it to her. To the woman he'd been fucking behind my back for a year and a half. She was going to walk down the aisle in my dress, marry my husband, build a life in the space where I used to exist. I picked up my broken phone and looked at it. The screen was shattered, but still functional. I opened my text messages and started typing, my fingers moving faster than my thoughts. I told him exactly what I thought of him. I didn't hold back. I called him every name I could think of, accused him of things I hoped weren't true but probably were. I told him he was a coward for doing this while I was away, for throwing away my things like I was garbage, for giving my most precious possession to his mistress. I told him I hoped his new relationship would rot from the inside out, that karma would destroy him the way he'd destroyed me. I sent it all. I didn't care if it made me look crazy. I was crazy. He'd made me crazy. He didn't respond. Of course he didn't. I spent that night on the living room floor, curled into a ball, crying until I had nothing left. The apartment felt haunted, full of ghosts. Every corner held a memory of us dancing in the kitchen at midnight, him carrying me over the threshold when we first moved in. Lazy Sunday mornings that now felt like they belonged to different people in a different lifetime. At some point, I must have fallen asleep, because I woke up to gray morning light filtering through the windows. My body ached, my eyes were swollen, and for a blissful moment, I didn't remember. Then it all came crashing back. I got up and walked through the apartment again, checking every room, hoping somehow I'd imagined it all. But no, my bedroom was still empty, my closet still bare. In the harsh morning light, it looked even worse, more final. I stood in the middle of the empty room and tried to remember the woman I'd been 4 days ago. She seemed like a stranger now, naive and blind, clinging to a marriage that had already died. That woman had believed in forever. That woman had saved her wedding dress as a sacred relic. That woman was gone. I found my laptop in my carry-on bag and opened it. I needed to know what I was dealing with legally. I searched for divorce lawyers, tenant rights, how to protect my assets. I made a list of everything I needed to do. Change the locks, contact a lawyer, close our joint bank accounts, tell my family, tell our friends. Then I searched for David on social media. I hadn't checked his accounts in months. I'd trusted him, hadn't felt the need to monitor his online activity. But now I needed to see. His Facebook page was still set to married, but his recent posts painted a clear picture. Photos from restaurants I'd never been to, tagged with Lindsay's name. Comments on her posts, inside jokes, heart emojis, the kind of casual intimacy that comes from spending time together. Lots of time. I scrolled through her profile, looking at photos of a pretty blonde woman with a bright smile. There were pictures of them together, dating back over a year. David's arm around her shoulders, both of them laughing. David kissing her cheek at what looked like a company party. David and Lindsay at the beach, at a concert, at a restaurant with candlelight and wine. He'd built an entire relationship with her while coming home to me every night. He'd looked me in the eye, kissed me goodbye, said he loved me, and then gone to her. For a year and a half. I closed the laptop before I could throw it against the wall, too. The next few days passed in a blur. I hired a lawyer, a sharp woman named Catherine, who listened to my story without judgment and immediately began drawing up divorce papers. I contacted our landlord and explained the situation. She was sympathetic and agreed to change the locks, adding that David's name was on the lease, so legally, he still had rights to the apartment. But she'd do what she could. I filed a police report about my stolen belongings, even though the officer made it clear there was little they could do since David was my husband and had access to the apartment. "It's a civil matter," he said with a shrug. "You'll have to sort it out in divorce court." David never came back to the apartment. He sent movers for his things while I was at work, and I came home to find even more empty space. The couch was gone, the TV, half the dishes. He'd taken the coffee table we'd bought together at a flea market, the lamp his mother had given us as a wedding present, the framed photos of us that had lined the hallway. He left the magnets on the fridge, though. All those memories of our trips together, still stuck to the stainless steel, mocking me. I ripped them all down and threw them in the trash. I told my family. That was one of the hardest calls I've ever made. My mother cried, asked me what she could do, offered to fly out immediately. I told her I was fine, that I needed some time alone. My father got on the phone and called David a string of names that would have made me laugh under different circumstances. I told our friends. Some had suspected something was wrong, said they'd noticed David acting strange at gatherings. Others were shocked, couldn't believe he'd do something like this. A few, the ones who were more his friends than mine, slowly stopped responding to my texts. At work, I threw myself into projects, stayed late, volunteered for every assignment. My colleagues noticed I was different, but didn't pry. I was grateful for that. I couldn't have handled their pity. At night, I'd come home to the half-empty apartment and try to figure out who I was now, without David, without my things, without the life I'd built for 12 years. I thought about the wedding dress constantly. It haunted me. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, phantom sensations of satin against my skin, and I'd remember Lindsay's face from her photos. Imagine her trying on my dress, standing in front of a mirror, admiring how she looked in the symbol of my destroyed marriage. 3 weeks after I came home to the empty room, David texted me. It was the first time he'd initiated contact since that phone call. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but I need you to sign the divorce papers. Catherine said she sent them over. Let's just get this done so we can both move on. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to drag this out, make him suffer, refuse to sign just to complicate his perfect new life. But what would be the point? He'd already moved on. He'd moved on a year and a half ago. I was just catching up. I signed the papers. Catherine filed them. The divorce would be final in 6 months. One evening, about a month after everything fell apart, I was scrolling through Facebook, a masochistic habit I couldn't seem to break, when I saw a post from one of David's friends. It was a photo from an engagement party. David and Lindsay stood in the center of the frame, her hand extended to show off a diamond ring, both of them beaming. I zoomed in on Lindsay. She was wearing a white dress, something simple and elegant. Not my wedding dress, a different dress entirely. I sat back, confused. He'd said she wanted my dress, that she was going to alter it, so why wasn't she wearing it? I opened Instagram and searched for Lindsay's account. It was public, filled with photos of her and David looking blissfully happy. I scrolled through her recent posts, looking for any mention of a wedding dress. Then I found it. A post from 2 weeks ago, a photo of a gorgeous lace gown on a mannequin in a bridal shop. The caption read, "Said yes to the dress. Can't wait to marry the love of my life in this beauty. Thank you to the amazing women at Belle Bridal for helping me find the one." I read it 3 times, my heart pounding. She'd bought a dress. A new dress, not mine. So where was my dress? What had David done with it? I called him. I hadn't spoken to him since that awful night, hadn't wanted to hear his voice, but I needed to know. He answered on the 4th ring. "Elena, what's up?" "Where's my wedding dress?" Silence. "David, you said Lindsay wanted it, but she bought a different dress, so where's mine?" More silence. Then a sigh. I threw it away. The words were so simple, so casual, like he was telling me he'd thrown away an old newspaper. "You? What?" I threw it away. Lindsay didn't actually want it. She just said that to make me feel better about getting rid of it. She thought it was weird that I was so hung up on you keeping it. So I tossed it. My hand tightened around the phone. "You threw away my wedding dress to make your girlfriend feel better." "Fiancé. And yes, it was just a dress, Elena. I don't understand why you're so obsessed with it." Just a dress. He thought it was just a dress. I wanted to scream at him, to make him understand what he'd destroyed. But what was the point? He'd never understood. He'd never tried to understand. To him, I was an obstacle to his new life, something to be cleared away and forgotten. "You're a coward," I said quietly. "You're a coward and a liar, and I hope every single moment of your new life is tainted by what you did to me. I hope you look at her and remember the person you betrayed. I hope you never find peace. I hung up before he could respond. I sat in the empty bedroom that night, the room that had once been ours, and I let myself grieve. Not just for the dress, not just for the marriage, but for the woman I used to be. The woman who believed in forever, who treasured memories, who thought love was enough. That woman was gone. David had killed her when he threw away her wedding dress. But maybe that was okay. Maybe she needed to die so someone stronger could take her place. I started small. I bought new furniture for the bedroom, a bed that was mine alone, nightstands that held only my things, art for the walls that reflected my taste, not ours. I replaced the dishes David had taken, bought new towels, new sheets, new everything. I stopped checking his social media, deleted him from my friends list, blocked his number, cut him out of my digital life as completely as he'd cut me out of his physical one. I went on dates, not because I was ready for a new relationship, but because I needed to remember what it felt like to be wanted, to be chosen, to be someone's first priority instead of their guilty secret. I changed jobs, took a position at a different company with better pay and more flexibility. Started therapy, spent an hour every week unpacking the trauma and rebuilding my sense of self. I moved out of the apartment, found a smaller place across town, somewhere without ghosts, without memories of him in every corner. The fresh start I needed. Slowly, painfully, I rebuilt my life. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in March. I received the notice in the mail, a simple document declaring that our marriage had been dissolved. 12 years reduced to legal jargon and official stamps. I should have been sad. Instead, I felt nothing but relief. 2 months later, I was scrolling through Facebook. I still did that sometimes, though less obsessively now, when I saw a post from one of David's friends. My finger hovered over the scroll button, ready to skip past it, but something made me stop. It was a photo of David, alone. He looked tired, older somehow, with dark circles under his eyes. The caption read, "Tough times, man, but you'll get through this. Drinks on me this weekend." I frowned and clicked on David's profile, curiosity getting the better of me. His relationship status had changed to single. I scrolled through his recent posts, piecing together the story. Lindsay had broken up with him. From what I could gather from cryptic status updates and comments from friends, she'd caught him messaging another woman, someone from a dating app. She'd called off the engagement and kicked him out. He was living with his brother now, according to a check-in at an apartment complex on the other side of town. I stared at the screen, waiting to feel something. Satisfaction, maybe. Vindication. Some sense of justice served. But all I felt was pity. He'd destroyed our marriage, thrown away everything we'd built together, given away the symbols of our love, all for a relationship that lasted less than 2 years. And now he had nothing. No wife, no fiancé, no home of his own. Meanwhile, I had built something new, something that was entirely mine. I closed Facebook and didn't look back. I thought about the wedding dress sometimes, usually late at night when I couldn't sleep. I wondered where it had ended up in a landfill somewhere, crushed under tons of garbage, rotting away like the marriage it represented. The thought didn't hurt as much anymore, because I realized something. The dress was never about the dress. It was about what it represented. A promise, a beginning, a version of myself that believed in forever. David had thrown it away, but he couldn't throw away what I'd learned from its loss. I learned that people change, that forever is a fantasy, that you can't hold on to the past, no matter how carefully you preserve it. I learned that sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who hurt you deepest. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought, that I can survive betrayal, that I can rebuild from nothing. The dress is gone. David is gone. That version of myself is gone. And honestly, I'm okay with that, because the woman I am now would never let herself be erased. She would never beg for scraps of affection from someone who didn't value her. She would never stay in a relationship where she felt like a ghost in her own life. This woman knows her worth. This woman takes up space. This woman doesn't need a preserved wedding dress to remember who she is. Sometimes I drive past the bridal shop where Lindsay bought her dress. I never go in, but I always slow down, glancing at the window displays with their mannequins in white gowns. I think about walking in, trying on dresses, imagining a future where I might wear one again. But not yet. Maybe not ever. And that's okay too. Because I've learned that you don't need a wedding dress to define your worth. You don't need a marriage to complete you. You don't need someone else's validation to know you're valuable. All you need is yourself. I returned from a business trip and found my room completely empty. Even my wedding dress was gone. But in that emptiness, I found something more valuable than anything David took from me. I found myself. And this time, I'm never letting go.